Joining me now, Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii. She served 2 combat tours herself in Iraq and serves now on the Armed Services and the Foreign Affairs committees. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Jim.
Representative Gabbard, it's great to have you on. You listen to this. This is not just an isolated incident. It seems to be a culture of failure, inattention, morale, etc. How concerned are you about the danger, and is this a national security threat?
I'm deeply concerned, and this is a very dangerous situation that has to be a very high priority for us to fix. I think we can look back at administrations since the Cold War from both parties that should take responsibility for us being in this position, but especially looking at the last decade when we look at the trillions of dollars and spending money, unfortunately sacrificing precious American lives in nation building in Iraq and the Middle East, and spending all of these resources there while neglecting very serious situations such as this here at home. So we've got to make it a priority to fix it for the safety of the American people. But also, as we look at Russia, Putin flexing his muscles, we've got to make sure that we have this nuclear deterrent in place.
General Dempsey in the hearings yesterday said that he is, in his words, certainly considering that U.S. forces accompany Iraqi forces on a particular mission he had in mind, eventually if Iraqi forces go to take back Mosul, a key city and a key stronghold for them. This is the 6th or 7th time where he has refused to take that option off the table, whereas the president has said repeatedly there will be no ground forces. Is the president being honest when he says he will not send ground troops to Iraq?
Well, I think, first of all, we've got to recognize we have troops on the ground in Iraq right now.
How about combat? It's a little bit more specific, because
well,
that sounds like combat to me.
They're armed, and I'm sure they're carrying ammunition. If fired upon, I'm sure they will return fire.
But it's more than that, because yes, they can defend themselves, but he was talking about sending them with Iraqi forces on what would be an offensive mission, going to take back ground, and would put them, if they're, this is not being back in a command post in Baghdad, it would be, on the front lines. That's combat, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And I think that the American people can sense the dishonesty and the lack of clarity and exactly what our mission is there, which has been the problem from day one. You and I have talked about this before. Without a clear sense of mission, then we can't come up with a clear, effective tactical strategy to defeat our enemy, the Islamic extremists that are ISIS. I would not support, and I do not support, our troops, more American lives going back into Iraq, going back into the Middle East, simply to prop up this still dysfunctional central government of Iraq and to still prop up this nation-building mission that really has been a failure for so long.
Now, you said not just unclear, but dishonest. You're saying that the policy is dishonest.
We have troops on the ground there right now, and what's being proposed is putting American lives at risk in combat in the face of the enemy. I think we've got to take a look at what we should be doing. We've got troops right now in Iraq, in the Kurds, in the Peshmerga, who still, I questioned General Dempsey and the Secretary yesterday, will the arms and the funds that they're requesting from Congress go directly towards the Kurds, who've been the trusted boots on the ground in this fight from the get-go? And I didn't really get an answer, but basically they said no. They said no, these funds will continue to be funneled through the central Iraqi government, which is still being led by a Shia-led government when we have the sectarian divide and fighting still going on between the Shias, the Sunnis, and the Kurds. We can't go forward with that.
So much distrust there. The other issue you pressed on was this idea of, again, we're in a situation, we, the U.S. and the military, in training local forces and basically placing the success of the mission on the backs of local forces, whether Kurdish or Iraqi. Your comments yesterday, you said, how can the U.S. be walking down the same path as a decade ago and hoping for a different outcome? Is the U.S., in your view, repeating a mistake?
That is what I'm so afraid of. And it was, as I sat in that hearing listening to those words, I did feel like I was in a time warp. And that's one of my greatest concerns, is that we do the United States does the same thing again, continuing down this failed mission of nation building and propping up this Shia-led government and not focusing on what's in the best interest of the United States. We have an enemy in these Islamic extremists who are a threat to the United States and the American people. And the strategy that's being conducted right now is not one that directly addresses that threat, rather pulls more of our resources away from what we just talked about, from nuclear arms infrastructure concerns that have to be addressed here at home and elsewhere.
Because that's a fair question. Because the U.S. military had tens of thousands of troops in Iraq, hundreds of trainers, a key central part of the policy, then trained up a force
Training
of a quarter of a
local
million.
security forces, exactly.
And
Now
it
they're
melted.
calling them a National Guard.
Right.
And these are the troops that we're talking about who dropped the arms that we left behind
And ran away.
Yeah. Why we would commit more U.S. dollars and potentially put more U.S. troops putting their lives on the line to conduct this same mission makes no sense to me.
Well, it's interesting now. So that's Iraq. At least in Iraq, you have a couple 100,000 Iraqis, 100,000 or so, depending on how you count them, Kurdish Peshmerga. Now, when you look to Syria, in the best case scenario, you're training up 5,000 to 15,000 rebels who are clearly often outmatched on the battlefield by both ISIS, al-Nusra Front, Assad forces. I assume when you look at the Syria option, that looks even worse to you in terms of how that's going to work, training the local forces as your ground troops.
It does, because in the so-called Syrian moderate opposition forces, we don't have the trusted allies that we have in the Kurds in northern Iraq. What we see there is a group that we don't know who they will be fighting with or against. If we had armed these moderate Sunni forces in the last year or 2 years, as Secretary Clinton and others had advocated for,
They wouldn't be so far behind? Is that your feeling?
we would have been arming what we see now today as ISIS. We saw just in the last week or 10 days ago, al-Nusra has switched sides and now are fighting with ISIS and overran one of these Syrian moderate opposition elements, and they left behind the heavy weapons that the U.S. had been providing to them.
There's concern that the shoulder-fired missiles that
Exactly.
ISIS has now, known as man-pads, that they might have come from what Gulf states gave to some of these, our allies, frankly.
Right.
I want to get to, because there's a big debate now on a new authorization for this war. Even the president himself has said he wants to seek it, which presumes that he believes he needs it, that the war needs it. Does that mean that the war, as it's being run now off this 2001 authorization dating back to 9/11, is illegal?
I think we do need a new authorization. I think it is a stretch to justify, especially using the 2002 Iraq AUMF, to authorize the action even that's taking place today, right now in Iraq. We can identify who our enemy is in al-Qaeda, in ISIS.
But to be clear, we need a new authorization. What the president said as well, but does that, if we need it, does that presume that the war is illegal today without it?
It depends on what the mission is. If the mission is to fight against the Islamic extremists who are responsible for 9/11, al-Qaeda, ISIS, whatever name they've morphed themselves into, or whatever name they call themselves by, there are actions that can be covered, in my view, by the 2001 AUMF. But to also use what the president is using, the Iraq authorization, I think that the situation we're seeing today doesn't have any bearing to what was intended in 2002.
Can we get enough Democrats, can you get enough Democrats and Republicans to vote for a new authorization?
It depends on what it's going to say.
Right. And major open questions, including whether that authorization includes the provision of ground troops. A lot of open questions in that debate. Thanks very much, Congresswoman Tulsi
Thank you very
Gabbard,
much.
a Hawaii Iraq veteran. Great to have you on.
Good to see you.